Welcome to Art Crush with artist Fee Marks and Paula Telizyn, where we talk about art, being an artist, running an art business, being a female artist, and all that in 2026. Hello, Fee.
Hi, Paula.
So today we want to talk about something I think we both find really, really fascinating, which is a slightly complicated topic because there's lots of branches to it, but it's all about the ideas behind the art we make. And why it's complicated is it impacts how our work is perceived, how we feel about our work, what we're afraid of when we share it publicly, and even what holds us in place so that we're stuck without doing anything to express what we're thinking. So we were talking before recording, as we do, because it's important to warm up and say hello and ask about the dogs, which I didn't do. I'm terrible. And we were talking a lot about ideas and about, even more specifically, why Fee in her career has never lost confidence about her art. And that is highly unusual. As somebody who's spoken to a lot of artists, we're talking hundreds of artists and interacted with thousands and thousands of artists over the years. I could say that that's highly unusual. I think I've met maybe 3 people who have not lost confidence as artists, and 2 of them were psychopaths, so I'm not sure about you, Fee.
I have to say, am I one of those?
But it's interesting because your reasons for not losing confidence are exactly why we're doing this podcast episode.
Absolutely. I didn't understand. I mean, when way back when I started out being a professional artist and I started working in groups with Paula would have a specific session on being confident about your work and not having those doubts. And I just couldn't relate to it. I didn't understand because that had not happened to me. That was the only reason I didn't understand it, because I was like, well, why would people do that? And it's only recently through our conversations and probably through the podcast that I've been actually able to really clarify the reasons for that. And that has then opened all these doors for other discussions. So the reason that I don't have doubts about my artwork is nothing to do with my skills as an artist. It is to do with the ideas and the message that I want to say. And so I am so consumed by the communication and the narrative and what I want to say that that's not what I'm going to doubt, because it's very clear in my head when I'm doing a painting. The actual artwork are the tools to communicate these ideas with the viewer. And as most of you know, I used to work in education, and the art curriculum was very, very focused on skills, which it has to be. We do have to learn how to hold a paintbrush, how to use this, how to use the other, but it never ever, in my experience, went beyond that, saying, here's the tools. Now, this is what I want you to explore, this idea. Let's talk about the idea and what we want to say, and then go off and do the painting. So it's about that talking and getting artists, adults, because I think adults as much as children, to actually talk about what they want to say. And it was exactly the same in the teaching of writing, is it in the way that it got, in my opinion, very much focused on the skills of putting a piece of writing together. And I'm not degrading that. If we've got to be clear, people have got to understand. But then there would be young people who would write using all these tools, but it made no sense. And I was like, that is pointless. What is the point of writing and nobody understanding it? And it's exactly the same with art. What's the point of painting and nobody understanding it? If you understand it, then that's great and you're doing it just for you. But if you want to run a successful art business, it's about what you're communicating with your prospective clients, with the viewers, so they can go, whew. And sometimes people don't know what it is, but then if the artist has been really clear, they can have that dialogue. Doesn't have to be exactly the same because it's about emotion. It's about passion. Not necessarily we all think in the same way when we look at the same thing. That again is a whole new podcast. What do we see when we look? That's for another day. But I think that having that light bulb moment of understanding that, because before I start a painting, before I start anything, it's about what do I want to say. I've already thought about my next painting and I've gone, okay, I want to show, because it's all about the empowerment of women, I want to show women doing things for themselves, appreciating life and the activities that we can do as human beings that make us happy. So I've already got that idea. As soon as I've got that idea, I start seeing the images. So I'm like, okay, my first one's going to be on the power of reading, the fact that we can get so much enjoyment from reading, showing women enjoying and being happy in reading. There's music. You can have another one on music theme. And that will, for those people, hopefully, but for those people who have those passions, they will immediately relate to that painting. They will immediately look at that and go, oh, I just love that's, oh, yes, being just curled up in a big chair, reading a book. That's where I want to be. That's my happy place. So there is a picture showing my happy place. It's almost like a gift to me. But if I was just thinking, oh, what could I do? Oh, I know, I could just do some women reading. I'll do a painting of women reading. That's it. That message isn't there. That is just an image without the passion and without the thought.
There's a lot of subtext that can be in there as well. Obviously, we're talking off the cuff here and not in the way that you would be planning a painting where you would go deeper into the ideas. But when you think about women reading, you're thinking about potentially women creating happiness for themselves and maybe an otherwise challenging life. Maybe women who are trying to expand their knowledge or enjoy themselves or I don't know, think different thoughts because reading gives you a chance to be in somebody else's life if it's fiction or nonfiction, depending on what you're looking at. There's a lot of depth to that that you would, of course, have considered long before putting brush to canvas. And I covered that when I was teaching artists in the big why as well, because the why is what are you trying to say? We all are trying to say stuff, but not everybody listens to themselves. I do this to myself a lot where I don't always listen to what I'm thinking. I just go and jump in with both feet and whatever and then pause and go, "Oh shit, that didn't work. What am I actually thinking?" So, encouraging artists, creatives, writers, musicians, whatever, but we are focusing on the visual artists to stop and think about what they are trying to say because each piece that we make is a reflection of who we are and what our thoughts are in the moment of the making. And the making starts when you start thinking about it and it finishes when you put a frame on it or declare it done or whatever. So it's important to have that understanding, and I've worked with so many artists who are just like, "Art is my therapy. That's why I create." Okay, that's great. That's what a hobby artist does. "Art is my therapy" is a terrible thing to put on social media when you're
Yep.
trying to sell art.
Please do not think we're criticizing people. Art can be and is a very therapeutic tool. But if you're running your business based on it helping you and improve your well-being, that is very insular. And what are you actually giving to other people? It's
Exactly.
about we are giving gifts to people, be it thought provoking, be it comfort, be it empowerment. As an artist or a writer, we are giving our viewers, our clients, a gift. So when you're questioning your why, which we all should do on a regular basis, we need to think about that. So if your answer is, oh, because art is my therapy, then you're not running your art business like a business. What you're doing is just explaining why you paint, and that's different. Why you paint and why you paint to sell your paintings can be the same, but can be also very different.
Many things can also be true at once. And as usual, we say painting as PP and I are both painters, but this applies to all visual arts.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
yeah. So when you say something is your therapy, basically you're putting a bubble around it and not allowing your viewer in. So as Fee says, give a gift. I think about it as inviting communication or inviting a viewer in. Similar ideas, different words, but it's the idea that our art is a doorway or, a handshake or a welcome mat or something that allows people to feel like they belong there too, that our pieces reflect them in some way. Humans are very similar. There's very little difference between all of us, for the most part, because we are stamped from the same mold. So, we all want some level of family or friends, love, consideration, respect, and a place where we can feel like we're ourselves. We want to have food security. We want to have housing security. We want to have some level of financial security. This is for most people, not for everyone. But that's why you can create a piece of work that touches somebody who has a completely different lived experience, but is still a human being. That when you create a piece, so a lot of my pieces, back before I had my, break from making art, so my accident, so before 2019, a lot of my pieces were about family and connection and love and even loss. This because loss and love are the same thing, because you can't have loss if you haven't had love, right? And so I would get people from Texas or Germany or whatever buying my pieces and saying like, "This ripped my heart out." Well, I don't know them, but we have that shared lived human experience. My why was about exploring connection and belonging and depth and what that means, both the good and the bad side. And so going into the painting of those pieces, of those portraits that I did, that was my why underneath. And my art was the vehicle for expressing that, for exploring that idea. Unlike Fee, though, I have had issues with confidence, with worrying that my art wasn't good enough because I came from a formal art education with a family of artists. Um, and on my dad's side, pretty much everybody who could get a paintbrush or an embroidery needle or whatever made art for generations and generations. So I was always worried about being judged on my technique and as Fee said in school, so I did post-secondary, a lot of post-secondary with art. In school, the focus is more on the, are you doing things correctly? Are you utilizing your tools well? Are you being safe with your materials and all that? That was the focus. When I went out and started to experiment, I was like, I don't think I'm good enough technique-wise. I didn't even think about the idea part of it until I had already started selling my work, which is a little bit, as we say in Canada, ass backwards, but that's how it worked, and I got my confidence from stopping and going, "Actually, what am I trying to say? What am I, trying to communicate?" But that came after I'd already mastered doing portraits and mastered my style.
And we know, Paula, in our experience of meeting and talking to artists from all over the world, there are some people who have sold their work quite successfully, but they could have been even more successful if they embraced the message and their why. And some people resist it. And by resisting it, you're actually stunting your ability to sell, in my opinion, because you need to think about your why. And if you find it threatening, ask yourself again, why do you find it threatening to think about your work and what you want to say? That shouldn't be threatening unless you are a completely impulsive person. You can only respond by impulses. You should be doing that all the time. You know, how many times do parents say to their children, think before you speak, think before you act? It's exactly the same for all of the arts. Think about it. The thinking process is the start. That's where the story begins.
Yeah. I wonder though if you spent time in a toxic environment or being dismissed, especially growing up, maybe you wouldn't trust your ideas.
I think that's very, very true. And I think, again, this is why we we fully advocate that you need to be okay and work on yourself alongside your business, no matter what business you're running, because there will be things from your past. Any person, not one person is not scarred by their experiences. And the older you get, the more scars you have. But I always say, it's not about what has happened to you in the past, it's about your response to it. And you've got no control over what has happened to you or what other people how they might have treated you. But you can either play the victim, or you can just become unfeeling and uncaring, or you can say, absolutely, I don't care. I'm going to be the best person that I can. And despite what has happened to me. So your response to it, so just as you say, Paula, I mean, I think both of us can say we've been in toxic environments in different parts of our lives. And that could have defined us, but we won't let that happen. And what's great is because of our friendship and our connection, we can even support each other through that. So, that's going back to our community of artists and how we support each other. We're not just talking about that today, but yes, it is. So if you're sitting there going, but I've been criticized all my life, do not think that you are alone. So people you think, in fact, I was talking to somebody I used to work with this morning, and I said, I know I've always been able to come across as confident, even if I feel like I'm not inside. I've worked on the inside bit, but it is important in order to get on in life, in order to have successful relationships, that you could communicate. It's back to communication again.
Yeah. I mean, moving sort of on with this idea in mind, we were also talking about how each of us have seen a lot of people with a lot of ideas of what they want to do, and then they don't do them. And I know for myself, I sat on my professional art career for a very long time. And I know it was because I was getting criticism from the people around me, like my ex went to art school with me kind of thing, and every time I wanted to go professional, he would tell me everything that was wrong with my work. And out of a pl
So loving.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so really wants the best for you.
Exactly.
Opposite.
That's how he couched it, and so I sat on being a professional artist for at least 10 years longer than I should have. But we know people who do the same thing, right? They have this idea, this dream, this desire to do something, be an artist, share their work, write their book, change their job, and they just go around and say, "Well, it'd be nice," or "I'd love to," or "one day," or whatever. And we can understand where that's coming from because as humans, we have lived this. But we can also say that understanding what you're trying to say with the vehicle, so whether it is visual arts or writing or music or whatever, with the vehicle you're choosing, what you're trying to say will help you get over that hurdle, will help you get past that worry of what if people don't like it? What if people are judging me on my skill? They will, people will, but it's not your business. Uh, if somebody
They're not your people. They're not your people. Like
exactly.
the person who criticised Paula and held back her career for 10 years, not her person, 100%. And I mean, and I also am a great believer of maybe that wasn't your time, Paula, that sometimes, yeah, it wasn't your time. And it's a bit like me. I mean, sometimes I go, oh, I wish I'd started being a professional artist years ago. And then I'm like, no, because the time wasn't right. It's when those stars align,
Yeah, and I
you
think
know.
there's a lot of personal growth you have to do as well, because when you run an art business so first of all, when you run a business, which I've run multiple businesses, not just art ones, you have to face yourself. in ways that you aren't expecting. You face your shortcomings, you face your strengths. It's like holding up this mirror to yourself, and a business requires that level of growth. You throw in an art business into the mix, so being an artist running an art business, that mirror becomes even more challenging, I think is the best word for it. You have to do a level of personal growth. So I agree with you, Fee, that that wasn't my time because I still needed to do a lot of personal growth that I hadn't done at that point. So as an artist, when you're showing your work, you want people to like it. You want them to understand it. You want them to accept it. Most people will generally be really fine with things. My biggest fear was outright rejection and being laughed at and chased off the internet. Never happened. That was fine. Like, I was just a paper tiger. So yeah, I thought it was a tiger I was facing. It turned out to be made of paper. But when you go in with that idea of what you're trying to say, and you're less worried about will people receive this and more um, concerned with, am I expressing this well? Because you can't control how people receive things. We have a very divided internet. We have very polarized people online generally. You can't control how people receive things, but you can control how you put them out. And I think the focus should be on, what is my idea? Am I expressing it to myself before I even start making the art as well as I could? And am I expressing it well in the art that I'm making? And then am I expressing it well in either the video I have with the art or in the writing I have with the art? Because your art can't speak for itself. You have to put it into context. And so give people a fighting chance to understand it and figure out what their relationship is with your piece. How they receive it, you can't control that, but you can control what you put out. So I think that that's really important if you're sitting and thinking, well, it'd be nice to be an artist, but I'm worried about being chased off the internet. It's not going to happen. The internet's a big place, and you just need to put your art into context and firm up your ideas, and then just do it. The cliche of start before you're ready is a cliche for a reason. Some cliches are terrible, but this one, start before you're ready, it means that you will not feel ready when you make your first pieces. Your ideas also might be shit because ideas are like muscles, you need to exercise them. Um, but you do it and you get better as you go. You don't worry about perfection. Don't worry about the reception of it. Do the best you can, make the next piece. Do the best you can, make the next piece. And hopefully you're improving as you go and becoming more clear. But doing it intentionally gives confidence, right? You're not just instinctively going, okay, well, I like how the sunlight goes through these trees, makes me feel happy. Here we go. And then looking back and going, actually, I'm telling a story about this area, or I'm telling a story about the landscapes or whatever. You're actually intentionally controlling your art to reflect the story you're already aware of. And then anybody's response to it is their business. And if they're rude, just delete and block.
Exactly. I mean, it is about articulation. I wish I had understood this when I was in my early 20s and an aspiring actress, because I stopped my theatre career because I had made it's all about me and personal rejection. Whereas I should have been focusing more about the pieces that I was doing and the words that I was saying and making them true and making them relatable to others. I was not doing that. I was just so over self-aware. I suppose that's what it is. It's self-aware that you're not understanding that you are the tool. You are a tool as well. The ideas are coming through you, not they are you, they define you. And yeah, and I think there's learning in that for everybody. I mean, the amount of people who will say, "Oh, but I'm rubbish at interviews," and "Oh, I'm terrible." And I'm always like, "Well, who thinks they're good at interviews?" Or, everybody is in the same boat when they go for an interview for a job or anything. It's about selling yourself. It's about marketing and selling yourself and convincing the person that you are the best person for that job. And that's what you're doing through your art. You're convincing people that you're communicating with them, telling their story as well as other people's.
Yeah. As we wrap this up, I think this is a really good place to wrap this up. The idea of the practice is important. And we've talked about this before. This is not my first podcast. It probably won't be my last podcast. I have absolutely love podcasting, but my first podcast was awful. I couldn't get to this point if I just didn't start, right? I would have still be sitting here 6 years later going, "I wish I had a podcast." So, running with that idea, where I think we'll leave this podcast episode with this idea, is that sometimes you have to hold your nose and jump in. You just have to hold your nose and jump in. Do the thing.
Take the plunge.
Yeah, exactly. So I always think about jumping into the deep end of the pool because I remember when I was learning how to swim, and one of the things, in order to get permission to jump off the high diving board, which as a 7-year-old was my life's goal, my 7-year-old self was wild. I had to jump into the deep end and swim across, and there was no, like, slip in or whatever. It was required that you jump in, swim across, get out, so I could pass the lifeguard's thing, right? So I think about that with doing anything now that clearly had a lot of impact. If you want to make your art better, or if you want to even share it for the first time, you have to hold your nose and just jump in. Figure out what works and what doesn't, because 'cause it'll be different for everybody to a degree, and then do the next thing, and then do the next thing, and meet
And also bear in mind, it's about lifelong learning. We are all evolving. We're evolving as people, we're evolving as artists, evolving our relationships, all of that. Nothing will stay the same. So unless you've made that first step or that first jump, you can't evolve. You will stay stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, so look at your ideas, maybe write things down, do a recording of yourself, do a video, whatever, get it out of your head, and then create some art. Even if you feel like the idea is silly or not fully thought out or whatever, you've gotta start somewhere, and like everything else, exercise will improve. Exercise your idea muscle and see what happens to your pieces when you become conscious of what you're actually trying to say with your art, and see what happens to your confidence. Maybe you too will be as confident as Fee Marks with her incredible, amazing art. I'm not making fun of you, Fee. It's a very rare deal that an art confident like
But at least I understand why that I had to find that out why I was different from all these people who were procrastinating and having self-doubt.
yeah, yeah. Hold your nose, jump in the deep end, and just do it. And that wraps up this episode of Art Crush. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and wherever your favorite podcast host is. Look for Art Crush with Fee Marks and Paula Telizyn. You can also check out Fee's website and my own website. Those links will be in the show notes. And subscribe, like, and share so that you can get all of the episodes. New episodes come out every Saturday, UK time, and we will see you in the next episode.